Hello, everyone. Today I am Naureen. I'm acting as host for the FHS Podcast. I'm the founder of Inspiring Women in Hospitality, gender balance advocate, community builder, and inclusive leadership creator. And today I have with me Judith as the guest for this podcast. Judith, thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Naureen. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Judith Cartwright. I'm the founder and managing director of BlackCoral Consulting, which is a consultancy focusing on asset management and commercial strategies across the ultra-luxury and destination resort hospitality sector.
Thank you for that introduction, Judith. So let's start right there in the area that you're working in, asset management and commercial strategy. What are some of the key trends that you're picking up on at the moment within the industry?
You know, ever since the hospitality industry now has come back, and during the pandemic, the hotel teams, they had to realize that revenue optimization goes beyond rooms, which is still, very traditional for many hotel companies. And the trends are very much going on the asset management side of things, where asset managers are focusing on the return investment for every single square meter across every single business unit. And there is taken a holistic approach in terms of the revenue optimization across rooms, F&B, attractions, spas, and retail, and really which business unit yields the best return, as more and more real estate investment companies are now focusing on investing in hotels.
And that's a really good point that you raise. I mean, I think traditionally we've looked at sort of the one business area, right, the rooms, but now it has obviously expanded to all the different business assets or business units within a hotel asset. And what are some of the things that you need to think of differently when you're looking at different business units, right? Because obviously the way that we maybe look at rooms as an asset is not going to be the same as we look at F&B or spa or other areas within the property.
It's taken the entire teams onto the journey, and for operations teams to get an understanding for the analytical aspects of the business, but then also for the commercial teams working together with the finance teams, with the operations teams, so that ultimately you have revenue management and revenue optimization as the gatekeeper that can then holistically advise the departments on where can you optimize the business. So for restaurants, for example, you can work with the chefs on how the tables are arranged, the seats are arranged. You can focus on menu engineering and menu design to make sure that those items that have the highest profit margin then also gets promoted by the waiters in the restaurant, but also placed on the menus that they do convert. You can almost imagine it like the Google heat map. What catches the eye converts easily. And then if then the waiter is able to promote that as the daily special, then it converts even faster. And then when you take this across the commercial teams, if then from an Instagram perspective, that item is promoted on Instagram, then that's also the must-have item when the guests come into your restaurant. When you look at the spas, you have your spa therapist utilization, but also you have your profit margin between the massages and the facials. It's the timings. Anything that has your inventory and the price point attached, how do you optimize that for every single period throughout the day and also then the day of the week? When it looks, when you look at the retail sector, is that how do you place the items in the shop that are selling so that it's easy from a customer journey perspective? And then when you talk about the sales strategies, the marketing, and then the PR, what messages they take to market, is then taking all that out and speaking about that. But then you can also take that to the next level. Then when it comes from an asset management perspective, historically asset management has focused a lot on just the profits and the costs, and at times too much on the cost cutting. And we really see that now as a trend evolving and coming here into the Middle East. It's something that's already, widely practiced when you look into the US, which is really then the trend also with a commercial lens. And it's just from a holistic perspective for the asset managers to understand what commercial strategies need to be implemented in order to have the best possible outcome from a profitability perspective. And that is really key.
So it sounds like collaboration is key, right? Because it's all the departments working very closely together and having that holistic approach, right? Not just focusing on your particular area of the business or your particular department, but identifying how we can communicate not only internally, but also with the guests, like you're saying, using the platforms like social media to identify which are the best products to place at which point. So as you've, gone on to your sort of consulting journey and the type of work that you've been doing with your clients, how has that evolved over the last few years?
That, we see a lot more where companies really want to have hands-on approach and not just this is what you could be doing, this is what you should be doing, but that you actually are able to help implement the business, what you identify during, let's say, an audit and a gap analysis, and that you're then a hands-on consultancy that can really roll up the sleeves and go under the hood across every single business unit. A lot of times when you go to conferences or events, it's a lot about talking the theory, and it's easy to talk about the theory, but how do you actually put that into practice? And that's why we take the teams onto the journey with us. That's why we do a lot of workshops, with the teams. And again, when it comes to revenue optimization across every single business unit, then we would start then also with the chefs or with the waiters. Every single person that has a touch point can benefit from that learning, but also we benefit from their input. And then based on that, once we do then the audit and the gap analysis, the workshops, then we also set the action plan. And then we still stay on with the client and we help with the action plan implementation so that doesn't get left on the shelf. And that then those that do engage us actually see the return on investment. And we do set KPIs at the end. And so far, all our clients that we have engaged with, they have been able to realize, at least double-digit growth, if not more. Because then once you leave, you want to make sure that the team feels confident, is empowered to carry that forward, and then really to build on that and take it to the next level.
That is fantastic results to hear, Judith. And is this, you've recently launched a book as well, so let's take a moment to discuss that. These elements of how, to implement some of these optimization strategies, is that what you're sharing in your book as well?
Yeah, we do. I share that in the book, and it's just, again, it's something I'm very passionate about. I feel here the industry can benefit from it and, also then benefit from implementing it. A lot of people, they keep asking, so how do you actually do it? So every single business unit has 1 or 2 pages in the ebook. The ebook is available on our website, with our compliments. It's our way of giving back to the industry. And there it's from the wealth of experience, and I was lucky enough that I was working at the Atlantis in Dubai, where every single dollar, with the amount of footfall that was coming into the door, if you're able to convert, that made a huge impact to the bottom line. But then it's also then that theory and that practice, we were able to implement across the one and onlys. And that's what we're doing now with the assets that we're looking after and that we're working. And when you really dissect the business and the different business units, there's always an area that you can optimize. Even if it's running, smooth, let's say 90%, and you want to optimize the remaining 10%, then we really take that approach of, finding the right price for the right customer at the right time through the right channel. And then we see, where's the customer journey, where's in the sales and marketing commercial activation journey, but then also how do the teams work cohesively and collectively in order for the outcome, and to make sure that we don't have the teams working in silos. And when the teams understand from one another what's actually needed and the information that they provide to one another, how that benefits each other, that's really then how they can take it to the next level and that's how they can implement it. A lot of it comes back to then also when you look at the systems, if your infrastructure is not set up right and you have bottlenecks in there, you can have the theory and you can have the practice, but you still have revenue leakages. It's almost, if you imagine a pipeline that has a little tiny crack, then the water will still leak through. You might not realize it because you still might have a strong pressure coming out of the faucet. But if you have the slightest crack in that process, that's also where you have revenue leakage, when the optimization in the end might not be as impactful.
Well, thank you for putting all your wealth of knowledge into this ebook together and making it accessible to industry. And now with your experience, obviously you're now coming to a point where people are perhaps approaching you for mentorship, especially women. Part of this segment of this podcast we'll be talking about is focused on FHS women power as well. So what advice are you giving to women as they progress their career in the areas of asset management and commercial strategies?
It's the advice that I was given when I was, early on in my career, is don't sweat the small stuff. And, just go for it and try and learn as much as possible. Don't be afraid of asking questions. Try and find a mentor that can help you guide through the process in terms of the overall approach. And as part of I'm the chair of the Revenue Optimization Advisory Board for HSMEI Middle East and Africa. And we launched now the second year in a row, the mentorship program. That's something that I would have loved to have. I've had amazing mentors throughout my career, but I did not have any mentorship from a very young age on that I was able to tap into the expertise on, from a C-level perspective. And that's now what we have launched. And, everybody on the advisory board is C-suite. And we all have 2 to 3 mentees that we meet with, virtually or in person on a monthly basis. And we have different topics that we guide them through. And it's just nice to see them, shine and flourish and grow in their career. And one of my mentees last year was able to get, not just because of me, but because, the encouragement, but was actually able to get a promotion. And then throughout that mentorship, I helped to guide through on how to approach it. But then also once she was in her new role, then how to approach that, and how to make sure that she is comfortable now, that she's got extra responsibility. And it's not only for women, it's also for, for men that would like to grow. So we've got a very nice and diverse group.
Thank you. I remember you shared that as well in the podcast with me, Inspiring Women in Hospitality, that your advice was to not sweat the small stuff, right? And I think there's a lot of work that women can do. And as you rightly said, let's make sure that men and women are part of the conversation. So as we think about, how we can promote more female leaders within industry, what can organizations do as well?
I think it's 2 parts. It's one is organizations, but then also it's, women. Like as women, we also need to make sure that we've got the infrastructure from a personal level, that we've got it set up. Whether you have children or you don't have children, but ultimately you have to be at home, you have to be a good team. And then you also have to communicate to your employer what you need in order to excel. You have to advise, what trainings that you're interested in. And at times then also invest your own money into trainings in order to grow and not just wait for the employer to help you grow. And there have been numerous occasions where I've been lucky enough where, during my corporate life, my company was funding training and education for me. But then also if there was something that I wanted to do, then I also invested my own money in order to gain that knowledge, and then whether it was reading articles, whether it was then attending courses, et cetera, so that you just look really outside of your own comfort zone. And, companies itself, I think a lot of times the whole gender balance, there might be an overthinking happening. And, for some companies, it might be a KPI, and it shouldn't be a KPI. It's a topic that we shouldn't be even having to speak about. When you look here in the Middle East, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, people get hired for their talent and not for gender. And that's where this region in the world is a lot further advanced. And then there's also equal pay. It's more the European countries or the Western countries where that is still lacking behind. And a lot of it just goes back to the woman becomes a mother. And because of some of the labor laws that are in place, that is really then also causing a bottleneck. So I don't think it's so much the companies or the organizations that need to change much. But I think it's really then also families, it's then men and women looking that they have the right support structure in place at home in order to be able to achieve that and excel.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to your original message of revenue optimization. It is about collaboration and having a holistic approach. And obviously one size does not fit all. It's identifying what it is that's going to work for you, not only as an individual, but as an organization, and then obviously collectively as a society. And as we come to the end of this recording, I'd just like to invite you with any final messages that you would like to share.
Thank you very much. I think just, sharing, don't overthink things, don't sweat the small stuff. And just simply go for it. I think that's the final message that I have, for anything that you do. And I really enjoyed being on this podcast, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith, so much for joining us on this episode with FHS on the FHS podcast. And thank you for having me as the host for today's episode.